All right, GameMaker. GameMaker. So, GameMaker is, I mean, you're all here, you all probably have some idea of what it is. It is one of the most popular 2D game engines out there. It is known for being able to be used for like a huge variety of projects. Like you can do everything from a simple little game made with visual scripting all the way up to like some of these professionally published games that have been made, of which I'm sure you've heard of a few. Yay! And speaking of which, do you have GameMaker downloaded?
No, I don't.
Alright, you should probably get that downloading while I'm doing my opening spiel here.
Do you want to just show
Yeah.
maybe for also recording
What?
how to do that, where to go?
You go to the GameMaker site, which is...
You can just press escape to get rid of the stuff. Yeah.
GameMaker. Here we are. You just go to the download link here and you hit that button and it just downloads right there. GameMaker is it is completely free. Thank you very much, Unity, for being a terrible game engine and making GameMaker free. For those of you who don't know, Unity had the whole pricing debacle at the end of last year, and GameMaker used to be a paid subscription to use GameMaker, and they took a look at what was happening at Unity and went, honestly, we should just make our game engine completely free. Like, there's a one-time licensing fee if you want to publish anything with it, but it's really affordable, and if you're just doing it for hobby work, then you have to pay nothing and you get access to the entirety of its features. It is a wonderful deal these days. They said they do not plan on ever going back on that. So, yes, get GameMaker now and enjoy. Okay. And then, as I was sort of talking about earlier, there's two different primary ways to program in GameMaker. One of them is with a visual block scripting language, where you've got blocks of code that you can just drag and drop and connect into each other, and you've just got an intuitive palette off on the side you can use. And then the other thing you can use is GameMaker language, which is often referred to as GML, and it is based off of C. It's technically its own language, but it is easy enough to pick up, and similar to Pico 8, it's designed with game usability in mind, so you don't have to worry about a lot of boring stuff like memory management. And then some advantages of GameMaker. As I said, thanks to the Unity debacle, GameMaker these days is completely free to use for pretty much any project you want. So it is easy to get started with, and it's also easy to learn. It is one of the most popular engines out there, and so there's been a bunch of community-made tutorials out there, and GameMaker themselves will regularly post tutorials for their own engines and provide support for that. So it's easy to figure out what to do if you need help. And so that is going to be sort of what we are doing today. One of the first things GameMaker provides you is with a couple of simple, space sprites right here to make your own space shoot-'em-up game. And we are going to be using those sprites to create a game. It's going to be similar to the tutorial that you can find on GameMaker sites, but once we get to the main game created, we're going to go a little bit further and add some more fun stuff onto it, like periodic power-up spawning, or a camera to move around the room, or stuff like that. So, do you have GameMaker downloaded yet?
I do.
Alright, in that case, let's get started. That is not the start button. 4 fingers. Here we are. So, if you've just started, you should be seeing a menu that looks a lot like this. If you hit the New button and then select Game, then it'll show a whole bunch of projects. And this right here is what we want, New Shooter Game. All this is going to do is it is going to just create the basic room and the basic sprites. It's not going to create any of the code. That's going to be what we're going to be doing from the ground up here. So you want to hit Space Rocks, select it to be in GML Visual, and then hit Let's Go to create the game. Alright, so this is what the main menu of GameMaker looks like. So, 4 main areas of the screen right now, not counting the toolbar at the top. First off, in the middle, you'll see your workspace. This is going to be, if you have a room or an object to open, this is going to be where you're tinkering with a lot of the code and putting things into it. So that's going to be where the coding happens. Off on the left, you see the inspector. That's going to be for more like tweaking the settings of an object or the properties of a room. So that's for stuff that isn't directly related to coding and stuff. On the right, you've got the asset browser. GameMaker does directly feature pretty rigid hierarchy of assets and things that you put into your game. The way it works is that you create a number of sprites, then you create objects, which are just things that have code attached to them, and you give the sprites to the objects. And then when you place an object into a room, it's no longer considered an object, but it's considered an instance of that object. And the instance is going to be what's actually in your room executing the code that you gave to the object. So objects create instances when they're inside of rooms. And so because everything is automatically set up as an instance of an object, it's easy enough to reference like what colliding things are or how things move. You don't have to manually keep track of what variables you've assigned to what, like you would in Pico 8. And then down at the bottom, there's just a command line. That's where like, if something goes wrong, error messages will be printed out there and you can try and debug them. But theoretically, we're not going to run into anything like that today. I say, tempting fate. So, let's see what we've got so far. As I mentioned, you should have two things in the game already. If you open the drop down for rooms, you should see the first room here, which we can double click to open up. The room itself is completely empty, and over here on the properties, everything is just in its default configuration. Then you've also got, if you open up the menu here, 4 different sprites. Sprites, oops, that is scroll bar. How do you, command scroll wheel. Cool, I'm learning how this works on Mac. I know how this works on Windows. It's control.
Control for...
Yep, control mouse wheel to zoom in and out.
Oh yeah, control is like command.
Yeah. And I have zoomed in too far. There we go, that's slightly better. Oh, my thumb's touching the trackpad, that's why it's being so touchy. And then middle mouse wheel and drag can move the cursor around the screen. I'm not sure what the touchpad equivalent is. Yeah, like if you press down the middle mouse button, I don't think you can do that on touchpad. But like I'm holding the middle mouse button and moving my mouse, and it drags the screen around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So again, what we've got here is just we've got our rooms and we've got our sprites. For our sprites, they are automatically created, and we shouldn't have to do anything with them for this game. If you're making your own game and you have your own sprites, I'd recommend just editing your sprites in some kind of external image editor and then importing them into GameMaker. It's relatively easy to do. And then the room we will edit once we actually have some objects to place into that room. So let's create some objects. Up here in the top corner, there's a Create Asset button, and you can use this to just quickly select the objects. Go 2, 3, 4, because we're going to be making 4 different objects, and then hit Create. And now while we're creating 4 objects, it's not going to be the 4 objects you might, why are they in sprites? There we go. That should be better.
Maybe you have the folder section?
Probably, yes. The folders don't really mean anything. They're just a way to keep things organized. And you can even, like, if I right click on this folder and hit create, I can add, where is it? Should be a way to add a folder into a folder. Yeah, create group right here. So you can have folders inside of folders if you want to keep things organized for bigger projects. Remove group. There we go. So, 4 objects. One of them is going to be the player, one of them is going to be the bullet, one of them is going to be the rocks, both the big rocks and the small rocks, and then one of them is going to be an invisible object that just sort of handles all of the code for the game logic, like respawning the player when they've been defeated. So, first things first, let's make a player to move around. So right here, you can rename stuff. It is a good idea to just keep a default like naming scheme, like GameMaker recommends you go OBJ underscore, and then whatever you want to name it, like player. Like you can see sprites are named SPR with the sprite name. So if you do OBJ sprite name, that keeps the two of them separate. And then for sprite, you can either go down here in the drop down and manually select it, or you can just take this sprite and drag it right in here in order to assign a sprite to an object. And then you can see that there's a couple of different menus down here for the object, but the one that's pulled up right now is events. That is going to be where the majority of your code comes in. So we're going to add an event. Everything in GameMaker is tied to events. When an event fires, then certain code is run. And while there's a lot of granularity you can do there, there's also a few different ways to do things. Like, for example, there is a couple of key press events over here. So like you can say if a key up is pressed, then accelerate your spaceship. But we're going to do things a slightly different way that makes it a little easier to see and gives us a little more control, which is the step event. For those of you who are here for Pico 8, this is just like the Pico 8 update loop. So this is called once every game step. Should prompt you to select a scripting language for the project. Again, we're doing GML visual for this one, but you can choose to do code if you want. But I would recommend visual just for today so that you can follow along with what I'm doing up here. And we're going to say don't ask again for this project because that's what we're doing for the project, but you may want to change over to code later on, so keep your options open. Alright, so now we have, if I scroll over, a step event. Get it in one screen. So this is this right here is going to be where our blocks will be placed in, and then over here are the blocks we have available to us. So, as I mentioned previously, we're going to start off with a key press event. So, right here, key press right here. This will be true if a certain key is pressed and false if not. So we'll just drag it right in. And this is going to be to accelerate our ship forward. So in this little button right here next to the name, you can click on that and it'll pull open a selection of menus, and you want the up key. So if the up key is pressed, then we want to add movement to our spaceship. And you can scroll up and down here to like find the block you're looking for, or you can type in here and it will filter everything by what you're looking for. So we want to add motion. That's what we want to do. Now if you drag it below the if block, then it will just add it as a next thing. It won't actually register as part of the if statement. So you need to drag it, see where it says empty? If you drag it in there off to the side of the if block, then it will come in as happening when the if block is true. So we want to add the motion, and then our direction in this case is going to be one of the inbuilt variables GameMaker gives you, which is image angle. And you can see it pops up like a list of possibilities as you start typing. But image angle is going to be what we want, which, as the name implies, just the direction your spaceship is facing. And then speed, keep it small, like 0.1, because this is going to be applied every single frame as you hold down the key. So you want it to be easy to control. And then we are going to do, actually, you know what? Let's just test this now just to make sure that everything works. So we have a room. Let us add our object into the room. And the way you do that is you literally just find the object over here on the side, drag it into your room, and there you go. Object in the room. So theoretically, what we're hoping to have happen is we hold the up key and our spaceship will accelerate forward until it goes off the screen. So if everyone's at that step, you can press the play button right up here on top hotbar, and that will play the game and allow you to see what's happening. Give it a second to build. I'm not entirely sure if it's like longer if it like takes longer if you've all haven't run it before. Anyways, here's our game. We hold up.
It's really slow.
It would appear I've made a miscalculation. We shall increase the speed of our spaceship.
Would it decrease if I let go or no?
No, because right now we're adding speed to each frame, and so as you can see, even though I'm not holding the keyboard, it's still moving forward. And if I keep holding it, then theoretically it should get faster at some point, and it kind of looks like it is. Very slowly. We'll add bigger numbers so it's easier to see. But yeah. Yes. What step have you missed? All right. So, as I have said, you do not want key press. You want. Is there a way to easily change it? Oop, nope. Yeah, you gotta delete it and make a new one.
And then, do you want to explain why? That was
Yes,
wrong?
because key press only triggers when you actually press down on the key. And key down right here will check to see it will fire every single frame if the key is down. I got the two mixed up the first time I spoke about it. Although there is actually another difference because there is button pressed for Pico 8. And that will fire once every 10 frames, I think it is, if you continue holding the button after a short delay, whereas this one will never fire again, as we've determined. It will fire exactly once when it goes down and then never again until you release it and put it back down again. Yes, but we want this one, and again, it's key down and then VK up, or you can select it from the drop-down menu over here, and then you want motion, and you want to accelerate it by 0.1 in the image angle. And then let's go ahead and complete.
Direction, image angle, and then speed.
I am getting everything confused.
Well, so direction
Yes.
is just so we're adding motion in the way that our sprite is facing?
Yes. So here, let's do the other parts right now. Let's do key down and drag it. You can even drag it underneath, like I put it right here, and that will automatically create it so it goes after the if statement. And then we want left, and we want right. And then for these, we are going to be changing the image angle. Nope. What are we looking for? It's not a motion command, I can tell you that. It is a set instance rotation. That's what you want to do. And for this one, we are going to set it to free, and you want to check, you want to check this box right here that says relative, because that will set it to 3 degrees relative to its previous position, essentially adding 3 degrees. If you left it unchecked, it would set it to 3 degrees no matter what, which is not what we want. We want, and angles in this engine go from 0 to 360 degrees. And then same thing with this one, we want to set it to -3 this time for the right arrow key. So that creates our clockwise and counterclockwise direction. So that is, if I could zoom out, key left is set it to free with the relative check mark clicked, and key right is set it to -3. And I hope I don't have the positive and negative mixed up this time. I think I have it right.
Right is negative?
Yes, because.
Mathematically, that makes sense.
Yep. And you can also see like an overview of your entire program off on the sidebar, even if it's difficult to see it inside the window itself. So if everyone has that, then we can hit the run button. And yes, it accelerates much better. We can rotate, and it will move in the direction. And then as you can see, it kind of just leaves. Yeah, if it goes off screen, you have a difficult time getting it back on screen. So that will.
So, what if, so is it from, it looks like from
Yeah.
the code,
Yes.
we're like accelerating it?
weird.
As we're holding it down more?
Yeah.
What about just setting a constant speed? Like how would we just make it one flat speed?
To set it in a constant speed, then instead of doing add motion, you would do, let me drag it in, set speed. Well, actually, it would need to be two things. First, you would need to set its motion direction in the image angle, and then you would need to set its speed in like 1. We'll do 2, 3. I don't know what a good number will be. And then I'm just going to delete this for now. I'll add it back in later because this is not going to produce spaceship motion. This is going to produce really choppy motion if how I'm thinking this works correctly. So if I hit run, just to make sure this works. So you press it, it goes forward, you release it. Okay. Easy fix to that. Right at the top here, set speed 0. That fixes it. So every loop, it sets the speed to 0, and then it checks to see if the key is being held down and sets it to 3. You could do this slightly more elegantly with an if-else statement. Those do exist. We have else right here. So if we append this to an if statement, then it becomes an else, and we could do that. So that's another way we could do the same thing. But this should cause us to come to a stop when we release the button. There we go. But this does not look like a spaceship movement. This is boring crab tank. Yep. So there's that. I personally prefer the other motion, so I'm going to switch it back over to that. But you do whatever motion you feel like works best for your game. Delete. I'm just going to check that to make it easier. And then motion. Image. Angle. 0.1. There we go. Okay, so last thing we need to do for player movement right now is, as we were talking about, if you go off screen, you are gone. So for this, we're going to, instead of just stopping you at the edge of the screen, we're going to do wraparound. So you go out the bottom, you come back out the top. And that's one of the cool parts about GameMaker, is it has a whole bunch of built-in commands for common things you might want to do, like a bunch of games with like wraparound. So right here. Wraparound room. If we drag this in, then it will automatically give you the ability to wrap your ship around the room in either the horizontal, the vertical, or both. And you can do a margin, so that will only wrap around if it gets so many distance units off the edge of the screen. So like this would probably be good for what we're doing right here. So if I test it right now with just that block added in, then it looks like this. And if it looks too choppy as it like goes off the edges of the room, we can always increase the margin a little bit. So like if I were to increase that number to 15. And that looks a little bit better. All right. So we've got ourselves a basic spaceship drifting aimlessly through the void of space. Let's give it some stuff to shoot.
So the wraparound room,
Yeah.
you just assign that to anything?
Anything, yes. And as it moves off the room, it will automatically come back in from the other side. Yep. So if you want to have, like, say, a background element that does, like, scrolling across the screen, you can give that wraparound as well, and then it will automatically loop when it reaches the edge of the screen to make a seamless background. Okay, so we are moving on to our next object, which will be this one down here. Object 2. And again, we can take a sprite and drag it on there, so that will be our rock big. Yep, and we'll call this OBJ rock. And now for this one, we're going to use another event, which is probably going to be the second most common event you'll use in GameMaker outside of the create event. And that is the step event is the most common, and then our create event here is our second most common. And that is, as you might expect, whenever an instance of this object is created, it will automatically run all of the scripts over here. So let's go add some scripts in. Let's stop scrolling in weird directions. Close enough.
You can just scroll over.
Yes, but it's, I think my thumb was on the mouse pad slightly, so it was making, I was trying to scroll with that at the same time, and it was flinging everything around. Anyways, so for our rocks, we're going to just also make them drift aimlessly through space. So we're going to just have them move in a random direction at a set speed, and then also sort of tumble in a random direction. We're not going to have that affect its movement. It's just going to be a fun visual thing. So we are going to start off by setting its direction to, again, random, and you can either do random x to do a number from 0 to however much, or random range in order to set two values to get the random number between them. So we're just going to do random 360, since again, that's how degrees are calculated in this game. So it will face in a random direction. It will move, we'll set it moving at a relatively slow speed. And we are going to also set, well, the instance rotation we can't set through here. We're going to just set that in the step event. So we are going to go back over here. We're going to add a new event, our step event, and we are going to have our image angle. Instance rotation, that's the word. And we're going to change that by 1 degree. And make sure to check the relative box on this one. Alright, so let us add a couple of rocks in and see how it looks. Can we zoom out? Yes. There we go, that's what I'm supposed to look like. And again, you can just sort of drag these in. Oops. Why is it? Oh, sprites. I'm dragging into sprite instead of the object. I need to drag into object. There we go. And we give this a run to make sure it all works. Yes, we should probably add a random initial direction so that they don't look like that, because this is a little bit goofy. Yeah, it's easy enough to do that. Yes. Yeah. So we go back here, we go back to our create event, and then similar to what we did last time, we're going to just take the set instance rotation and we're going to set that to another random 360. No, that would be step. Because what the wraparound script technically does, that block of code is shorthand for if the object is currently outside of the screen, send it back up to the other side of the screen. And so you want to check that every frame when it could possibly be outside. So yes, we would go into our step event over here, and we would grab the wrap around and we put it here. And since the rocks are big and moving slowly, it's going to look really awkward if we see them snap to the other side of the screen the instant they get a tiny bit off screen. So we're going to give them a margin of 100 so that they have to drift a good ways off screen before they invisibly teleport back up to the other side.
How'd you figure out 100?
Because the rocks are, I forget what size they are exactly, but they're smaller than 100 pixels. So if we make it bigger than their size, then it becomes seamless. I think they're 64 pixels. Uh,
164 by 172.
oh, they're bigger than that. Oh wait, no, it's half the size. Yes, of course. Because if margin is 0, it will wrap around when the center of the rock gets off screen. So that's 100 units off center. So as long as they're smaller than 200 in this case, because the radius of that would be 100. Yes.
And can you, you
Yeah.
did something in create where it's like you create a random initial?
Yes, that's just so they don't all start facing in the same direction. Yep, that's the same set instance rotation we've been using, but we're applying the random function inside of it. So you're going to do like a tiny little bit of scripting here, like you can call functions like this in order to get values, but it's not going to be very much. It's just going to be a few self-explanatory things like this. And then technically if we want to get really funky with the speed, we could do something here, but that would probably be more trouble than it's worth.
Well, but they're all rotating at
Yeah.
one angle.
Yes. Well, this in itself should do something more interesting. Here, I guess we will do the more funky thing. Why not? Let's do that. Let's get into variables. Because that's really going to be the only way to make an effect like this easily, but you're right that it would be a cool effect. So, we will assign a value to a variable. And the name can be anything, just make sure you reference the name later. And we're going to call this rotation speed.
This is only for the rock?
Yes, variables, unless you explicitly call them as global variables using the set and get global variable commands, all variables are tied to the instance. So this variable is for this instance, and we'll set its rotation speed to be a number between random range, and we'll do between 0.25 and 0.5 because 1 looked to be a little bit fast. So we'll do something in this range. Yep. Again, tweak your numbers however you want. Game making is however you want to do it. I'm not trying to give you exact numbers here. So then, now that we've assigned a rotation speed to the rock, that's going to be the rotation speed for that instance of that rock. So we can just come over here, and instead of changing our rotation by 1, we change it by rotation speed. And you can saw, let me just do that again. You can see that as we're typing it, now that we've assigned something to it, it will pop up in our autocomplete menu. All right. Let's see these in action. There they go. They look a little bit more natural now. And if we wait long enough, we can see them go off screen and then come back in on the other side. Now there's still no collision. You can slam into these rocks and you'll just pass right through them. So
Should we do something with like the margin for wraparound for the player as well?
if we want, I've set mine to 15 right now, and you can see it looks pretty good. You could go more, because if I'm moving slowly, you can see it jump from side to side. but the less margin there is, the more intuitive it's going to feel for the player. But the more margin there is, the better it looks. So I've picked the best compromise that at the speeds you're likely to be moving, you won't notice it. Alright, collision. I have not done collision like this in a while, so I do know what I am doing. I almost called it as a thing there, which you can do, but there is a significantly easier way to do it, which is right here. Back up in our player object, you want to hit add event, and then you've got a bunch of different events, and then right here, you've got our collision events, and then you want to create an event that triggers when the player collides with object rock. This is for the player. So when the player collides with a rock. And then we are going to, where's the particles? Yes, particles are really easy in this. You just literally, they've changed it. They should still be easy. It's not? Yeah, I was using the old version of GameMaker. No, I assumed particles hadn't been changed much. I didn't add particles in when I was playtesting this because, like, that's just a real minor thing. You don't have. Cool, you don't have particles. Your ship just sort of blinks out of existence. Destroy instance. So right here is going to be what you want to use. You just drag that in, and that's going to kill your player the instant they touch a rock. And you can, there's a drop down next to it here, which you can use to, like, if you set destroy other, then that's going to make your player destroy any rocks they touch, which is not what we want. We want it to destroy self. Okay. Collaborative game development. Anyways, let's go slam our ship into some rocks. Now, I noticed real quick, I think I may have, why were there 5 rocks last time? I thought there were 5 on my screen. I saw, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Yeah, there's a 5th one that appears randomly and instantly slams it. Well, it's a good thing that my ship is dead. Yes, respawn will be the next thing that we do. As soon as I diagnose where the 5th rock is coming from.
Well, it doesn't, see, because it touches like the square. That's fine. Yeah. Is there?
Because because remember, objects are mostly like boxes in this game.
Yes, yeah, the collision rectangle. We can change that if you'd like to change it to a circle or something.
He was about to get mad that he shouldn't have died, so.
Well, no, I was checking that would happen because I figured it kind of.
Aha, here it is. I spawned it off screen, so it immediately wraps around to be back on screen where it kills the player.
Oh.
So yes, objects can exist outside of the room, so make sure you handle those as needed. Either leaving them there if you're keeping them intentionally, or deleting them if you are not. Absolutely. There's a lot of things you can do. So yes, let's actually try and ram this into a rock normal way. So yes, everything's working fine. And then we come upon a rock and our ship blinks out of existence. And again, we should have some fun particle effects for that, but we do not.
You can just add side effects for that.
Yes.
Something about sprite mask? Sprite collision?
Yes, sprite collision. Let's go back to this. So, collision mask right here. Oh, they've tied collisions to sprites. Well, there's an edit mask button right here. Collision mask. Aha, there it is, yes. So you've got a few different ways that you can do collision masks. There's different shapes that you can do it, like rectangle, ellipse, or you can even do precise, so it will automatically set it to the individual pixels. But for something like this, you probably want just a circle around the rock. This will give you close enough to what you want. Or you can manually do it. You can manually select what pixels you want or how big you want it to be.
So could you make like exact pixel perfect boxes?
Yeah, would it be slow?
It would be very slow, yes.
What, creating it or just running it?
Running it, because it would have to check so many different things each frame. Whereas if you're checking a simple rectangle or a simple circle, it's much easier for the computer. So again, you want ellipse and you want it to be automatic so that it automatically aligns close to the center of your sprite. And then technically we can do this with the player as well. We can open editor, collision mask. I mean, for the player, it makes a little bit more sense to have a rectangle. We could do a circle. It doesn't really matter which one we use here. It's going to get similar results each way. But this is where you would go if you want to adjust the collision masks for anything. And I have lost literally everywhere to go. Here it is.
How do we find it again?
Yeah, if you double click an object off on the side here, it will zoom into where it's at in the workspace. Workplace can be a tad difficult to navigate sometimes. It's going to be part of muscle memory, getting to figure out how to do that, which I do not have yet. Okay, so we are trying to respawn the player when the player dies. And in order to do that, we are going to jump down ahead a little bit. We're going to save object free for our bullet for no other reason than it's just nice looking that way. Keeps things organized. And we're going to object 4, which is obj game. This is going to be a persistent object that exists outside of everything else. It doesn't have collision. It doesn't have a sprite. It just always sits up in the corner of our screen running all of the game logic that we need it to. And so for this one, we are going to have, how do we do this? We are looking for a step event, I believe. Yes, for object game, we make a step event, and then zoom out. That was not zoom out. The Mac does not trust me yet. I don't like it. Still jittery around me. We are looking for, there should be, here we are, get instance count. So get instance count of object player. And we are going to set that to a variable named players alive. Now theoretically, there should always be a player alive. And so we're going to actually make this look even nicer. One that detects that there's no players alive. It is going to actually that's going to be tricky. I will just do it the easy way, which is when it detects that there's no players alive, it's going to immediately restart the room. Yep, so that's right here. Well, not there actually, because that's going to restart the room every frame, which is not what we want. We want an if statement. So we want if players alive, players alive is equal to 0, restart the room. And then remember, we still need to actually add the object into a room for it to take effect. Yes.
Is it possible to like wait 3 seconds before we start the game, for example? Like, is there like a pause?
There's no real pause. There is alarms.
Is there like anything like a set screen that you can put text and then say like begin and then the game starts?
Alright, let's do, this is going to be a bit of a longer workaround, but it would be what I would do if I was making this professionally. Not professionally, like for something that looks good.
Do we want to do like the bullets first and then the extra stuff?
Cool, yes, you bring up a good point because we've got a half hour left in our time. So yes, we are going to just say for now, if the player dies, immediately restart the room with 0 fanfare. And then once we get the bullets working, then we are going to, yes, exactly.
Let's just hope it doesn't happen with rocks falling down the street.
So, final object of today is going to be our bullet. Once again, we can just drag that in and name this OBJ bullet. So before we start messing with, yes.
Do I have to drag the game object into my room?
Yes, I was saying that, you interrupted me, but yes, thank you for getting back to that. Sorry. But yes. And again, you can drag it anywhere, it shouldn't matter where. It's going to show up as that little question mark symbol because it doesn't have a sprite on it. Your Discord is bouncing at the corner of the screen. Is there a way to silence that?
Oh yeah, I can close it.
Why is it doing that? Who's calling me?
It's 7:31.
Oh, somebody's calling me. Yeah, I'll just ignore that. Okay.
Okay.
I will crop that out.
Game engine in the room. So, bullet. Let's create some bullets that are spawned. So, in our step event, we're going to add one more key press event. And we're going to say key. And this time we do actually want key pressed instead of key down because we want a single press to fire a single bullet. Yes, the step event for the player specifically.
That's what keep down.
Yes, key down would repeatedly fire a bullet. Key press would fire one bullet when we press it one time.
Which one?
Whatever you want. Space, Z, left click, anything you think makes sense for firing. Yep. Okay. So key Z is pressed, then instance create. Here we are, create an instance. And we are going to create, we have it as like an object. We haven't done anything with it, it's just a blank object. So like we can say here, create objects obj bullet. There we go. And we want to check the relative buttons for both of these. So that way it will create it exactly at the player's X position and the player's Y position. So right now, if you press, it's kind of small. There it is. So if you run the code right now, then we can actually, I'll just run that to show what will happen. Because it does spawn bullets. However, we have given absolutely no commands to these bullets. So, yeah, you need to set the sprite to the bullet or it's not really going to show up. But you can see we are just leaving a trail of bullets. And also slamming into rocks. There we go. Now let's make the bullet start moving. Down here. So, when the bullet's created, we want to give it some initial momentum. And that is going to be similar to what we did for the rock, but with different values. So, scroll down here. We have set direction. And we want to set direction to obj player dot image angle. And that will, as it implies, set the direction to the player's image angle. So wherever the player's facing, the bullet will start facing in that direction as well.
So it has the width of the-
Yes, so you point in the direction you want to fire, and then you want to set the speed to, I don't know, why not 6?
for definitely.
Maybe 10? I don't have a good intuitive grasp of how big the room is or how big things should be. So we'll try out different speeds. So this one, before we do that, let's add one more little event. Here we are.
And what do you think about the
Well, I'm going to do, we can, now my initial thing was just for variety's sake, I was going to say whenever the bullet's outside of the room, destroy it. However, we can do wraparound.
Let's do the disruption.
Okay, I mean, it's literally the simplest thing. You go add event, other outside room, and so there's an event that will trigger whenever the bullet's outside of the room, and there, all done.
Okay.
There.
Oh, that's this is so easy.
Yeah. So we can fire, our bullets are moving, and as they leave the room, they are destroying themselves, so they're not creating any lag outside the room. Still not destroying any rocks yet, but that should be relatively easy to create.
So if you did have that destroy instance, the firing event would start causing the game to lag.
It would indeed, yes. Okay. And now for destruction of the rocks, we are going to probably want to do that in the rock object itself. So we do add event, collision with objects obj. There we go. Are you making heart bullets?
No.
No heart bullets. Okay. So again, colliding when the rock itself collides with obj bullet. Now this is going to be where we are going to have a little bit of fun with it. Which is, we are going to have it so that if the rock collides with a bullet, then if it's a large rock, it will split into two smaller rocks. And if it's already a small rock, then it's going to destroy itself. So, where is our if statement? No, this would be the collision event with obj bullet.
Wait, what have you said so far?
I created a collision event with obj bullet for the rock. So this is the rock saying, when I collide with a bullet,
Destroy.
not yet. Well, it's going to split into two first, and then the smaller ones are going to get destroyed.
Oh, for rock.
So what,
Yes.
how do we set the maximum of splits then?
We're only going to have it split once. Like, we could have it split more if you want. We could do something granular like that. But I'm just going to say big rocks split into two small rocks destroy themselves one hit.
So it's inside of the,
Mhm.
it's inside of the rock
Mhm.
objects.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
Destroy.
Yep. Sprite. I believe it's sprite index. Because sprite index right now should be SPR underscore rock big. And we'll obviously see if that doesn't work.
That's just associated with the name of the object itself, right?
The name of the sprite itself.
Sprite.
Yes, we've given the sprite to this. So we're seeing if the name of the sprite is rock big, Then we are going to set sprite to rock small. And then
What is frames do?
that's for, you can have, each sprite can have multiple frames of animation. So you can choose what animation it starts with. So like if you want to do like a walking character, then you would make both of those walking sprites as frames of a single frames of animation within a single sprite. So you wouldn't need to, yes, but it would all be contained within a single sprite here, whereas in Pico 8 it's just a sprite sheet and you have to have them all different sprites, and this you could combine them all into one. Okay? Nope. Not that. I'm trying to remember. No, I'm not looking for else, because what we've done now is we've made it so when it gets hit once, it shrinks. I'm trying to remember what to do in order to so I know how to do this in the coding language. I don't know how to do this in the block language, so we're going to do a fun hacky workaround here.
Wait, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for the ability to arbitrarily change another instance's properties. So what we're going to do here,
Another instance of property?
yes, because what I'm thinking we do here is,
Wouldn't that
yes.
be like create child?
Well, you can create an instance. I don't know how to clone a single object, but what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new rock, and then right here, target, that's going to be where we put it into a variable. So we're creating the variable new rock, and we are saving a reference to the instance that we're creating in that variable. And then we get to just pull up an arbitrary piece of code here. This is way too big. Why is it so big? I just want like one line of code. Is that too much to ask for?
Yes.
Okay, we are going to have a giant block with one line of code, which is new rock dot image, sprite index equals SPR rock small. There, oops. There we go. And that is a giant block of code that should set that. So again, we're having right here in the target section, we're saying target new rock, which is save a reference to the new instance in the variable new rock. And then we're setting new rock dot sprite index equals SPR rock small.
I wonder if there's no way to do it in block.
Not that I'm aware of. Block, there probably is. I do know that block is sometimes more restrictive than the coding language. Mm-hmm. Somewhat.
New rock, sprite.
Not like that. Hmm. Yes.
Wait, that's the actual code?
Yes, this is in the actual language. Yep. Okay.
Okay, and then what?
and then I try and rewind my screen so that it makes sense. Okay, we're gonna just have this big ugly red bar there. Anyways, we need an else statement now. So that was all of the code for when it collides with a big rock. When it collides with a small rock, we are going to do something a little bit easier, which is destroy instance. Oops. There we go. And there's one more thing we need to do. At the top of all of this here, we are going to have another destroy instance, but this time it is going to say we apply it to the other. So that means in this case, since the rock is colliding with a bullet, the other object is the bullet itself. So one bullet can only trigger one activation of this. So the bullet isn't going to like cleave through a whole stack of rocks at once. One bullet will hit one rock and then it will disappear.
Both the rock and the bullet.
Yes.
This is inside the rock script, but
Yeah,
the
but
further
it's
thing I'm commanding.
exactly.
So they both destroy each other.
Yes, but we're only applying it in one place, the rock script. And again, I'm not 100% confident in all of this, so I am going to test it, and we are going to see if what I just told you was in any way correct.
No. Better be that. 1, 2.
There we go! Okay. Then what I've told you is correct, and I have successfully done it. Now, the other weird thing is that, as you saw, the rocks were kind of overlapping each other when they spawned. So we can easily fix that by just going to right here when we create the other rock. We'll just throw a random bit of variation on there. We'll say random range minus 32, 32. There we go. So it will jump anywhere from 32 units, yes, up or down in this case. And then we'll do the same thing for the, well, left or right for that case, up or down for this case. Can it please, there we go. Boink. They're still overlapping. Make the numbers bigger.
How about 15, 50?
Too small, 70 and 70.
Negative 50. Negative 50.
What about like
Got it.
So like, when I shoot it, and
It's for the
one
bullet.
spawns up there.
Oh, you didn't check the relative checkbox. So that would say so that
These
yeah.
ones.
So that's minus or plus 32. Rel is just the thing that's spawning it.
There's the bullet.
There we go.
But it should be a
Wait.
Yeah, if you want it to be less overlapping.
You can import images as sprites.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's trivial and easy. Yeah, of course.
Can we just drag it out there? The is spray.
I think maybe that are not as bad as modifying the ones.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes left.
But they still try and separate each other. They will try to reach the first.
What's next, Mr. Workman?
Mizzy
I-
Egypt.
I was going to do the a more graceful room reset, which would be it would A, reset when either the player's destroyed or the rocks are all destroyed.
So,
So-
all, so all, not all three, but all. I'm kind of.
Well, is there like a way to
Yeah.
No.
Yes, we can.
Throw confetti.
Yep. So, I don't know particle effects.
Okay, that's alright.
So, here we go. And then, so, yes. What we're going to do is, again, this is the way I would do it. I would use liberal usage of variables. So I would create a variable here called game over, and I would set that to false.
Oh, you can put both values and boolean operations?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, completely separate.
Again, this is why I like these engines. They're easy to use.
And it's free. And it's free.
It is free.
Because you're making a game not like a video game, it's
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah, GameMaker games are relatively easy to decompile and make mods for. There are tools people can use to encode the game so it can't be easily decompiled. Risk of Rain Returns uses those codes. All the modders hate it. Nobody's been able to mod Risk of Rain Returns.
kind of sucks because of that.
Yes.
The modding community.
But again, default GameMaker, if you haven't put anything like that onto it, is very easy to decode and make mods for.
So, using Undertale as an example, would people just look through, I guess, the code for Undertale and make whatever they would want to?
To an extent, yes. It's not like you can't open it up in GameMaker like this, but you can open it up and see the code inside of it and modify it that way. There are some things like there's an Pico 8, obviously you can you get the source code for every game you download. There's a game engine called Love2D. I haven't worked with it much, but .exe's for that engine, you can literally rename the .exe to .zip, unzip the zip folder, and you're looking at the literal source code. It's that easy.
Because why wouldn't you want to see the source code?
Anyways, so we're setting this variable game over to false. And so right here, if, all right, we're going to do a nested if statement.
Nested if statement.
Yes. So
Complexity.
drag things around there so it looks kind of like this. So the first thing we check is if game over is equal to false. So if game over is false, then we check if players alive is equal to 0. And then we would do,
So you saying 0 means that the player sprite itself is not on screen?
not available as an instance. There are no instances of the player in the room. So if that is the case, then we will assign game over to be true. Yes, so instead of restart room, and then the main thing we're going to do is an alarm. Yes, we are going to take this alarm and we are going to set alarm 0 to, I think that's frames. I think that's frames. So we are setting alarm countdown for alarm 0 to have a countdown of 120. I think that's going to be 4 seconds. Actually, we'll make it slightly quicker for testing purposes. I think it's counting frames.
Oh.
60 frames
I think.
30. Wait, wasn't it 30?
I think it's 30. I don't remember what GameMaker runs at these days. Again, a lot of my GameMaker knowledge is from a previous version of GameMaker. I am old. I'm too old for this game development business.
You have time until next workshop. Or like a month and a half.
Yeah, I'll make something better in it and refresh my skills. Well, get some skills in this new version. But alarms still work pretty much the same, which is that it's just an event. So right here during the step event, when we're setting the alarm countdown to 60, that's saying in 60 frames, activate some other event. And this is that other event. And here is where we're going to restart the current room. Yes. So here is what we're going to do for that. We're going to go to... Is there no draw event? There's the draw event right here. Yes. I'm not familiar with Draw GUI. Yeah, let's do basic draw for now. And we are going to do another if statement right here. But this time we are going to check to see if game over is true. Exactly. If game over is true, then we are going to draw text. And the caption is going to be I'm not sure what caption means. I'm just going to keep value as blank and put caption as you exploded or something like that. You're exploded, sure. I think actually I'm going to put draw. Now we'll just do draw text. The text is going to be really small. Draw transformed value is probably going to be what you're looking for. And then just to try and make it appear in the center of the screen, I am going to set it so that X and Y is equal to, nope, that's not the right paste. No. That would cause it to jitter wildly. Yeah.
Well, X would be really good.
Yes, I've messed up. I've got an X and Y. Yep, and then we can also set scale.
And then scale 1 and scale 2. Is that like the font?
That's how big you want it to be. So 1 is going to be 100% size, 7 is going to be 7 times as big. I don't know what 100% size is, so we're again just sort of testing things out, seeing what it looks like. So let's see what happens. That looks terrible. That looks abysmal.
Wait, let's see. Oh, why is this so blurry?
Why is mine not showing up?
What's the scale that goes again?
7.
Wait, it's game object events draw, right?
Yes.
If game over is true.
Are you setting game over true? You make sure to do that in the step event. And it's restarting after a certain amount of time, right? Like it's not instantly.
Yeah, the alarm is working.
Yeah.
Okay.
The draw
Just
is
go
working.
back to your step and then just so I can see it.
And the step event looks like this. Yes, thank you all for coming today. Our next workshop will be in over a month. Yes, we are going to be having a lot more workshops in between them. Most of them, the ones that I will be hosting at least, will be for the Pico 8 game engine. So if you want to learn about that, and of course we're still holding Tuesday workshops for Unity, and if you have any questions for any of us, we're holding Thursday office hours. So thank you for coming. And yeah, have a nice night.